back to the people who pay the bills. I want everybody who pays taxes to have their tax rates cut. And that stands in contrast to my worthy opponent's plan, which will increase the size of government dramatically. His plan is 3 times larger than President Clinton's proposed plan 8 years ago. It's a plan that will have 200 new programs as well, or expanded programs. It'll create 20,000 new bureaucrats. In other words, it empowers Washington. And tonight you're going to hear that my passion and my vision is to empower Americans to be able to make decisions for themselves in their own lives.
So I take it by your answer then, Mr. Vice President, that in your an interview recently with the New York Times, when you said that you questioned whether or not Governor Bush was experienced enough to be president, you were talking about strictly policy differences.
Yes, Jim. I said that his tax cut plan, for example, raises the question of whether it's the right choice for the country. And let me give you an example of what I mean. Under Governor Bush's tax cut proposal, he would spend more money on tax cuts for the wealthiest 1% than all of the new spending that he proposes for education, health care, prescription drugs, and national defense all combined. Now, I think those are the wrong priorities. Now, under my proposal, for every dollar that I propose in spending for things like education and health care, I will put another dollar into middle-class tax cuts. And for every dollar that I spend in those 2 categories, I'll put $2 toward paying down the national debt. I think it's very important to keep the debt going down and completely eliminate it. And I also think it's very important to go to the next stage of welfare reform. Our country has cut the welfare rolls in half. I've fought hard from my days in the Senate and as vice president to cut the welfare rolls, and we've moved millions of people in America into good jobs. But it's now time for the next stage of welfare reform and include fathers and not only mothers.
We're going to get to a lot of those. Yes, go ahead, Doug.
Well, let me just say that obviously tonight we're going to hear some phony numbers about what I think and what we ought to do. People need to know that over the next 10 years there's going to be $25 trillion of revenue that comes into our treasury. We anticipate spending $21 trillion. And my plan says, why don't we pass $1.3 trillion of that back to the people who pay the bills? Surely we can afford 5% of the $25 trillion that are coming into the treasury to the hardworking people who pay the bills. There's a difference of opinion. My opponent thinks the government, the surplus is the government's money. That's not what I think. I think it's the hardworking people in America's money, and I want to share some of that money with you. So you've got more money to build and save and dream for your families. It's a difference of opinion. It's the difference between government making decisions for you and you getting more of your money to make decisions for yourself.
Jim?
So let me just follow up one quick question. When you hear Vice President Gore question your experience, do you read it the same way, that he's talking about policy differences only?
Yes. I take him for his word. I mean, I fully recognize I'm not of Washington. I'm from Texas. And he's got a lot of experience, but so do I. And I've been the chief executive officer of the 2nd biggest state in the union. I've had a proud record of working with both Republicans and Democrats, which is what our nation needs. We need somebody who can come up to Washington and say, look, let's forget all the politics and all the finger pointing and get some positive things done on Medicare and prescription drugs and Social Security. And so I take him for his word.
Jim, if I could just
quick,
respond.
We need to move on. Yes, sir.
I know that. The governor used the phrase phony numbers. But if you look at the plan and add the numbers up, these numbers are correct. He spends more money for tax cuts for the wealthiest 1% than all of his new spend proposals for health care, prescription drugs, education, and national defense all combined. I agree that the surplus is the American people's money. It's your money. That's why I don't think we should give nearly half of it to the wealthiest 1%, because the other 99% have had an awful lot to do with building this surplus and our prosperity.
Our 3.5 minutes is up. New question.
I hope it's about wealthy people.
Governor Bush, you have a question. This is a companion question to the question I asked Vice President Gore. You have questioned whether Vice President Gore has demonstrated the leadership qualities necessary to be President of the United States. What do you mean?
Well, here's
by
what
that?
I've said, Jim. I've said that 8 years ago they campaigned on prescription drugs for seniors. And 4 years ago they campaigned on getting prescription drugs for seniors. And now they're campaigning on getting prescription drugs for seniors. It seems like they can't get it done. Now, they may blame other folks, but it's time to get somebody in Washington who's going to work with both Republicans and Democrats to get some positive things done when it comes to our seniors. And so what I've said is there's been some missed opportunities. They've had a chance. They've had a chance to form consensus. I've got a plan on Medicare, for example, this two-stage plan that says we're going to have immediate help for seniors and what I call immediate helping hand, a $48 billion program. But I also want to say to seniors, if you're happy with Medicare the way it is, fine, you can stay in the program. But we're going to give you additional choices, just like they give federal employees in the Federal Employee Health Plan. Federal employees have got a variety of choices from which to choose, so should seniors. And my point has been, as opposed to politicizing an issue like Medicare, in other words, holding it up as an issue, hoping somebody bites and then try to clobber them over the head with it for political purposes, this year, in the year 2000, it's time to say, let's get it done once and for all. And that's what I have been critical about the administration for. Same in Social Security. I think there was a good opportunity to bring Republicans and Democrats together to reform the Social Security system so the seniors will never go without. Those on Social Security today will have their promise made. But also to give younger workers the option at their choice of being able to manage some of their own money in the private sectors to make sure there's a Social Security system around tomorrow. There's a lot of young workers at our rallies we go to. And when they hear that I'm going to trust them at their option to be able to manage under certain guidelines some of their own money to get a better rate of return,